Good morning or good afternoon, depending on where you are, and welcome to a very special episode of The Angry Astronaut. I have with me right now the head of Spaceport Cornwall, Melissa Thorpe, and she's going to be telling us all about this exciting new project and what it means for the future of spaceflight in the United Kingdom. Thank you so much for joining us, Ms. Thorpe.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited.
Me too, me too. When I first visited Cornwall in 1977 as an 8-year-old kid, I was, walking through the gorgeous landscape and such. I loved space as a kid, and yet the last thing I would have thought is this is the perfect place to put a spaceport back in 1977. So why Cornwall?
Yeah, so you're not alone in thinking that. However, a lot of people are surprised that we actually have a few assets in Cornwall, natural assets as well as infrastructure assets that have led us to become, a spaceport. So our natural assets being our coastal location, quite low residential buildup and direct access over the seas, and then more infrastructure projects assets that we have historically over the years. So one of them being Goonhilly Earth Station, deep space communications ground station just down on the Lizard, so south of us here up at the airport. And then the airport itself, Cornwall Airport Newquay, was originally called RAF St. Morgan, so it was a Royal Air Force base during the Cold War. So the infrastructure that they have at the airport, including the length of the runway and some of the other infrastructure assets around the site, have led us to where we are today. So the whole reason behind why we were shortlisted as a potential site are those natural and infrastructure assets we already had, and we're just building on that to become a spaceport.
Impressive. Can you tell me more about Goonhilly, simply because a lot of our listeners may not know about that?
Yeah, so Goonhilly are quite a historic figure in the space industry. They are ground communications station, and were actually during the Apollo moon landing missions had received the moon missions coming back down to Earth and broadcast those across. Were the main broadcaster for Europe of those landings. They were part of the Live Aid concerts back in the 80s and 90s, and they're really well connected. Some of the deep sea cables come right into Goonhilly as well. So it's a fantastic connected site. The local BT Infrastructure Telecoms had owned them up until right when I first moved down here about 10 years ago, when a private individual, Ian Jones, purchased the site and has basically taken it and brought it straight up into modern day with lots of private investment to become the kind of world leading deep space communication site. They're doing lunar missions, commercial missions, as well as we just opened Goonhilly 6 last week, which will be for communications with Mars Express as well. So there's lots going on down at that site, and there are actually our mission control tracking partner for Spaceport.
That's very impressive. A fantastic partner to have, no doubt. And if you could tell us, of course, about your main partner, Virgin Orbit. There is, of course, a lot of private space flight happening right now. I just interviewed recently Black Arrow and what they're planning on doing. What is going to give your spaceport that competitive edge?
Well, we are part of the Launch UK program. So the UK Space Agency and UK government established a short list of spaceports over 7 years ago. And we're actually the only horizontal space port in that program to be moving forward at the moment. So our project, Spaceport Cornwall, is made up basically of Goonhilly Earth Station, as I mentioned, Virgin Orbit as our satellite launch partner, and Cornwall Council, who actually own the airport. So that's what makes up Spaceport Cornwall. It's a public-private project. And I think what makes us kind of leading the way at the moment is the fact that we will be the first spaceport to launch next year. And that, like I said, is just building on what we already have. The Virgin system we could actually operate tomorrow. We're just currently waiting in the UK for the space flight regulations to be going through Parliament. So we have the regulatory environment to safely launch in the UK. So we're ready to go. We have all the infrastructure we need to launch. We have the operator we need to launch. We're just now waiting for basically that paperwork.
And as far as your relationship with Virgin Orbit is concerned, is that something that Virgin Orbit and Sir Richard, did they approach you? Did you approach them? How did that whole thing work out?
It's funny. I get that question a lot, and I'm trying to stretch my mind back to those initial conversations, and I can't actually remember if it was a dating app who kind of pinged who first. But the conversation started. We were asked by UK government to go out and speak to industry and come back to them with a partnership. They didn't want to build a spaceport and wait for people to come and use it. They wanted us to come with an operator. So there was only a few sites in the UK to be doing that. And what happened was a lot of industry that were operators that were interested in operating from the UK and Europe got in touch with the spaceports that they thought would best fit their operations. So it was a mutual, right from the beginning, kind of conversation with Virgin Orbit. They wanted a launch site in Europe. We wanted a launcher that would fit with our existing infrastructure that we had, and it was a great fit. Add on top of that, Sir Richard's kind of affinity for Cornwall. He used to holiday down here as a child. And I guess, we align quite closely and with Cornwall and the lifestyle of Cornwall to the Virgin brand as well. So that can't be taken too lightly because that actually does mean a lot to Virgin. So the relationship's built over many years now to the fact, we just had most of the team out here for G7 this past week, which has been fantastic. So it's a great relationship, and we definitely feel like we're kind of part of that Virgin family.
Wow. Well, that is indeed an exciting thing. Exciting for me personally. I'm going to hopefully be watching their next launch taking place in Mojave here in just over a week. So very excited about their whole mission, the way that their platform, their innovative method of getting small sats to orbit, all of that is quite exciting to me as well, and to my viewers. This is definitely popular stuff at the moment, and I have a feeling that once these launches start to take place from Cornwall, it's going to draw a lot of attention, because there aren't a lot of people, even in the spaceflight world, who are aware of the fact that this is happening. This is very exciting, to say the least. Now that they are, however, not your only partner now. The news, of course, came out just a couple of days ago that Sierra Nevada, or Sierra Space, as they call that subdivision of their company now, have signed an agreement with you also. Can you describe that to us, please?
Yeah, so that's really exciting. It's something that we've been working on for a few years with Sierra Space. And that was just looking at the potential for them to use our runway at the airport and our spaceport for their orbital return system, Dream Chaser. Obviously, Dream Chaser launches most often vertically, so that's something that we won't be doing here in Cornwall, but that we can offer that orbital return as one of the potential landing sites around the world. So we've been speaking to them for a while, but we had some funding through UK Space Agency last year to do a concept of operations with them, to look at the more kind of detail and technical aspects that we need to do to kind of take that relationship forward. So we just announced that we have the MOU signed with them, that we have an intention to work together further to make sure that everything we are doing would potentially work for them. And see how that develops in the future. Obviously, we'd absolutely love to have Dream Chaser land one day in the future.
And so, what would a Dream Chaser mission look like? I mean, they would launch, obviously from Cape Canaveral or something along those lines. And then, what would be a reason that they would land in Cornwall versus an airfield in the United States? What would be a compelling reason for them to do so?
Yeah, similar to Virgin Orbit, they're really keen to look at other potential spaceports around the world that can help them broaden and expand their business models to show that they can operate, obviously, as a secondary landing site or a primary landing site as well. So, with Dream Chaser having several potential locations that they could land at, but that they're really quite interested in developing kind of the ecosystems around what they're bringing back from space and the payloads that might be returning with them, and how that can be part of their business as well. So what we see that asset of that being in here in Cornwall is that we can kind of build a cluster around processing those payloads in our facilities that we are already building. So it's kind of, them expanding their business model, as well as having kind of secondary sites, but that we can kind of capture that opportunity here in Cornwall to look at that suborbital or that orbital return and what's on board that orbital return. And that's really exciting to us, especially things like microgravity research. And the academic prowess that the UK has here is something that I know Sierra Nevada are really keen on seeing. And they're really, their relationship with the United Nations, working with developing countries on their SDG, the Sustainable Development Goals. They operate in quite a way that's quite different, in that they're trying to move, their purpose and ambitions around the world.
Well, that also is extremely exciting. I've done many videos about the Dream Chaser, about just about everything that Sierra Space is up to. And as you probably know, they intend to have a fully functional space station up by 2026, which will be serviced almost exclusively by the Dream Chaser. So it seems to me that there'd be a lot of economic potential in the future for your spaceport if Dream Chaser, if it's one of the primary landing sites for Dream Chaser. Would you say that's a fair assumption?
Yeah, I think, again, similar to Virgin, they have been over here for G7. We've gotten to know them really well, and we have done over the years. And I think their, our purpose and values of what we want to achieve with our spaceport align really well with theirs. So I can only see good things in the future with our relationship.
Fantastic. I know you may or may not be able to comment on this, but it has recently been announced that Virgin Orbit has a new agreement to set up a solar electric upper stage for their Launcher One now, instead of conventional chemical propulsion, in order to give themselves the ability to send more substantial payloads all the way to the moon. Do you know anything at all about this development?
I do, but I can't quite say at the minute. Only to say that, the team, knowing them and spending the last week with them, there's so much coming with Virgin Orbit as well. Really exciting stuff, and this is just the beginning of their future. So yeah, nothing I can officially comment on at the minute, but yeah, definitely keep an eye out on them.
Yes, no doubt. Well, exploring alternative forms of propulsion is something that I've always been very interested in, and I do a lot of videos on the topic. So, to move on, kind of back to the Sierra Nevada thing again. This is a little bit speculative. Some of our viewers may not know that the Dream Chaser can also be housed inside the fairing of the Ariane 5. Do you see the possibility of a completely European mission with Dream Chaser? That is to say, launching Dream Chaser from Guyana in an Ariane 5 and landing in Cornwall with, this would be, involving the ESA as well. But would you see that as, being an example of a future mission involving them? Could it get that ambitious?
I don't see why not. I think, as we all probably know now, with space and all the players involved in space, nothing seems to be too ambitious anymore. We're working really closely. We are, even though because of Brexit, we are still part of the European Space Agency. We are still in Europe. So working with our partners across all the other European spaceports as well is something that we do. We sit on the Global Spaceport Alliance. We are collaborative with the other sites. Yeah, so who knows? But I think it definitely is something that I wouldn't say is not possible, knowing space at the minute.
That is very exciting. One question, probably a bit of an obvious one, but are you 100% horizontal to takeoff kind of configuration, or do you have any plans to do any sort of vertical work as well?
No, at the minute, as the technology is, we will only be horizontal launch, and that is really because we are a operational civilian airport, and we're really proud of the fact that we are integrating horizontal launch into the daily activities of an airport. That's not going to change. We're not planning on shutting the airport. The airport itself is really valuable to the local economy and to connectivity to the rest of the country. So any adaptation of that has to fit within the overall kind of business model of the airport. The tourism side and the residential side of Cornwall, and it is growing. So I could see us just staying with horizontal launch for the near future for sure.
That having been said, have there been any conversations in regards to Pegasus, the much older horizontal launch configuration that the U.S. has been using for some time? Has there been any dialogue with them?
Yeah, we know them well. The space industry is still quite small, and everybody pretty much knows one another. We've spoken to them in the past, and I think it's surprising. A lot of people think that what Virgin Orbit are doing is the first time horizontal launch has ever been done before. But we often point to Pegasus and what they've been achieving over the years, just this is just the next iteration of that, but we are only working with Virgin Orbit and Sierra Nevada officially at the minute.
Okay. Going back again to Virgin Orbit, again, perhaps a little speculative here, but it's kind of what I do. Of course, it's, as I'm sure you know, there is a mission in the works with a consortium of Polish governmental organizations, universities, etc., to send a mission to Mars. Do you anticipate, or is there any indication that mission may be launched from Spaceport Cornwall?
Oh, wouldn't that be fun? Nothing again that I can really say on that. But if it was possible, absolutely, we'd love to be involved. We know those guys quite well, and once you're kind of in the Virgin family, then that's all the other spaceports they're working with, and a lot of their payload customers as well. So who knows? But that would be great fun.
Well, the geographic proximity of Poland to the UK versus the United States, it seems to make a whole lot more sense to me. But then again, you never know how things work, obviously. So, okay, tell me about the local community in Cornwall. I would say probably 9 out of 10 Americans don't realize that the Cornish people are different than the rest of the UK, that sort of thing. And also only a minority of that population in Cornwall is Cornish or identify as Cornish. Is there a sense of pride, first, I guess would be my question, on the part of the people in Cornwall, both English and Cornish for that matter? Do you sense that right now, or has it not yet taken off in the local community?
Yeah, so Cornwall is a very interesting place. It's absolutely stunningly beautiful, and I'm saying that being Canadian, which I'm used to very natural, beautiful places, but Cornwall is stunning, and it has a really, really deep historic identity. It's Celtic. The Cornish are similar to Welsh and Scots and Irish. They're just part of England, but they have their own language and traditions down here. So there is a strong cultural identity in Cornwall, and they're very patriotic and proud of Cornwall. So we as a team obviously if you know what a Cornish accent sounds like, you very instantly pick up that I do not have one.
Yes, yes.
But we have our whole. When you live in Cornwall, you suddenly become Cornish, and everybody in our team, number one, we are passionate about Cornwall. Number two, then we are passionate about space. So everything that we do is for enhancing people's lives in Cornwall. At the end of the day, this is about us attracting a world-class opportunity, world-class brands to Cornwall, as long as what activities happen is something that Cornwall can be proud of. So we're very much about making our project the most sustainable spaceport in the world, and not just stating something like that, but backing it up with action and integrity, so that the people in Cornwall can not only get excited about having a spaceport, because that's just something that is still good fun to listen to when people first hear that we're doing it. But that then when they start to be slightly concerned about what that actually is that we can, take responsibility for what we're doing and ensure them that we're going about it in a way that we want them to be proud, so that when Cornwall does go to space, that they can be rightfully excited about it. And Cornwall actually has a very pioneering history, that it's where the steam engine was created by Trevithick, and the mining, Cornish mining is all around the world now, the techniques that were developed here. So engineering heritage runs through the kind of core of this county. And all we see this as is that next iteration, the next chapter of that history. And so, yes, what we're seeing now, especially after G7 and all the profile that Spaceport got from that, is massive amount of excitement. A lot of jokes in there and memes, but mainly excitement.
So all of that having been said, have you experienced any sort of significant resistance? People saying we don't want 747s taking off from here, that sort of thing?
Because it's an airport that has had 747s and much larger aircraft, it's the surrounding areas of the airport. We haven't really had a few noise concerns, but we've been able to respond to that. I would say the main concerns we've had is about the environmental impact. The council, who are part funding the spaceport, declared a climate emergency at the exact same time that we were going through the investment process. So I think a lot of locals were really confused on how the council could support environmental measures at the same time as developing a spaceport. But as many people now, are quickly understanding, is satellites and space technology is one of the potential solutions to helping us fight climate change. And if we can get those satellites up there in a more transparent and responsible manner, then the balance is hopefully in the right direction. So we've done a lot of really hard work and had some really challenging conversations about that. Cornwall is one of the most deprived areas in Europe, as much as it's naturally beautiful and lots of really wealthy people live here. It is very deprived still, and we've received European funding for years, and a lot of that funding unfortunately has gone to projects that maybe the local community have not seen any benefit from. So we have had people voicing that they're concerned that maybe this is another white elephant and a vanity project, and maybe the funding should be going elsewhere. But through the jobs that we're creating already, the technology and the kind of the names that are now being drawn to work in the area, as well as the school children. We've worked with, this year alone, 10,000 school children, and inspiring them to get into careers in STEM right on their doorstep. I think we're starting to see people understand that we are backing up what we said we were going to do.
That having been said, how many jobs, in your opinion, in the long run, are you going to create in Cornwall and in the Cornish community?
So don't know if it's the same in the US, but in the UK, when you do a government infrastructure project such as Spaceport, it is a very long process. You have to go through a lot of different applications. One of the things that we had to do is Her Majesty's government treasury process, which is called a Green Book appraisal, and they basically pick through your entire business plan and your vision and identify in there, the jobs. So when we say we're about to create 150 jobs, just direct from the spaceport alone, not including some of the ancillary jobs, those figures weren't just picked out of thin air. They were assessed by economists And so that 150 job figure, that's something that we're already, taking numbers on and delivering on now, which, after a pandemic in an area like Cornwall that struggles to have well-paid, highly skilled jobs, it is a big opportunity. And I think, having something in a new sector, an innovative sector, a growing sector that isn't just the traditional farming, fishing, and hospitality industries that we have down here, I think, again, is something that's really exciting.
Exciting to me too, definitely. I have a question from one of my supporters. I do my best to give my supporters an opportunity to ask questions. This one is kind of more on the what if side. We always have to look at potential disaster situations. Obviously, well, especially over here, we're quite accustomed to Elon Musk blowing up rockets. So, what sort of things do you have in place at Spaceport Cornwall to accommodate for the unlikely possibility of Launcher 1 and a 747, exploding on the airfield, for example? What sort of precautionary measures do you have in place for that?
So that's exactly what we're going through at the moment. We're due to launch about this time next year. The current thing that we're waiting on is this piece of regulations to go through Parliament. That is the spaceflight regulations, which lay out all the things that we will have to be proving that we're following. So in July, August, we will be receiving an application to apply for a spaceport license. In that, it will say exactly what measures we need to take to mitigate against any of those kind of risks. Luckily for us, we're not handling anything that we've never handled before at this ex-military site that has 747s and hazardous materials coming in out and has since it was created during the Cold War. So we see this as is kind of operations that we are comfortable handling. There will be measures in place that we are taking from the FAA and operations that Virgin have done in Mojave and looking at how we will manage that at our airport. The thing about our airport is it's massive. We have tons of space around this airfield to put Cosmic Girl on to not have a wider impact in that kind of safety zone on other businesses up on site or passengers. We're on completely the opposite side, and to use a Canadian phrase, kitty corner, so diagonal from where the terminal is. And then we're just looking at working with the Civil Aviation Authority on how that follows and tracks the Cosmic Girl as she takes off and goes out over the sea. And then, of course, it switches over to the range management of the aircraft when she's airborne. So that's all being mitigated and managed as we speak.
Wonderful. My last question. Currently, from my understanding, the UK has a payload maximum of 500 kilograms on what a rocket can carry. Now, currently, Launcher One doesn't carry more than 500 kilograms in any event. But do you see that limit being changed as rockets grow larger and the space industry grows more ambitious in the UK?
Yeah, potentially. I think you're at a point now in the UK where we're just about to become a launch nation, and to identify, how that's managed, and this legislation and our licensing program and the insurance levels and the range management is something that will be settling over the next few years. And from the back of that, I think the UK and the Launch UK program is very much grow as the market grows and adapt as the market's adapting. So the regulatory environment is for where that is at the moment, and that any changes to that in the future, I believe that the UK government will be monitoring that very closely, because this is all about the UK's goal and ambitions of capturing 10% of the global marketplace in space by 2030. And launch is a part of that, a major part of that. So I think, we've always said we'll grow sustainably as the market continues to grow and adapt with that.
Yeah, that's a colossal ambition, one that I talk about a lot in my videos, actually.
Yeah.
10% is a huge chunk of the pie. So yeah, I'm very excited about that as well. Oh, before we close, is there anything else that you would like to say about Spaceport Cornwall and your mission?
No, I think I've covered most of it. Just to say that, yeah, like we're looking to launch next year. It will be the first satellite launch from the UK, and we're here to work with satellite customers across Europe to basically bring launch closer to them. But at the same time, working with our other spaceports around the world, I think it's an interesting time to be. Well, no, it's a super exciting time to be in the space industry, especially commercial spaceports, because it's starting to change and in such an exciting way. And I think for anybody listening, for us, it's all about telling that story, telling about the value of space, why it's so important to us here on Earth, in a way that maybe people aren't not in the space industry can understand. So that's always my plea to anybody in the industry, is to start to tell the story of space in a digestible way, so that the average person understands how crucial it is that we are supporting space and exploration of space to help us on Earth.
Well, all of this is fantastic. I wish you every success. And when this first launch occurs at this time next year, I will be watching one way or another, definitely. So, in any event, I really do appreciate your time today, Miss Thorpe. Thank you so much for joining us here on the channel, and look forward to watching your success in the future.
Oh, amazing. Thank you so much for having me, and have a lovely weekend.
Take care. 44 years ago, when I first visited Cornwall, I never would have imagined that this young lady would be heading up this exciting and innovative space initiative that deserves worldwide coverage. Coverage that I hope in a small way to be giving them as the years go by. So until Spaceport Cornwall becomes the colossal success that I hope that they end up being, as the UK strives to grab that 10% of the world's space industry, I urge all of you to stay angry about space.